Hi everyone. This video is going to take a little bit different turn than my typical posts in the past that I've done on the channel. With everything going on in 2020 and the pandemic, you probably heard there has been a mad rush new gun buyers to the market. And a lot of those new gun buyers are also realizing that with all the new gun buyers out there, there has been a shortage of ammunition as well, and or unforeseen price increases in the cost of that ammunition. So what I wanted to go into today is getting into reloading. Now, I'm going to focus today on only pistol caliber reloading, since that is a majority of what new gun buyers are buying is pistols, 9mm, 40 caliber, 45, whatever the case may be. Reloading is still a good option, even though some of the materials for doing the reloading itself are sometimes being hard to come by. They do seem to be more available right now than loaded ammunition. So I'm going to focus on pistol calibers. I'm going to talk about my particular machine. Now, I am a fan of Dillon machines, which is what this one is here. There are a lot of other manufacturers out there that make presses that can reload pistol calibers. I am sort of a Dillon Precision fan, so I'm going to focus on my Dillon machine today. But just know that there are other machines out there that can do the same job. I just happen to prefer my Dillon machine. And we're going to talk about the specifics of this machine as well, and how I think it has advantages over other machines. In future videos, and I'd certainly like to know in the comments down below, please post a comment about any particulars you would like to see about this process or about the machine itself. You might have questions about how I process my brass, how I choose my primers, how I choose my bullets. Where do I get my reloading data from? How do I choose my powders? So on and so forth. Again, everybody's going to have their own opinion, and I certainly understand that. I know what works well for me, and I also know works well for what materials I can obtain right now. So please post a comment down below if you have a question, and if I see enough comments on that, I will try to focus a video on that specifically. I do know that I am going to go into more detail about this machine as well. There are some videos out there about square deal machines. There's not a lot of videos out there detailing how to break down this machine and clean it. I take very good care of this machine. I've had it for over 20 years, and it still operates like it was from day one. And that comes down to a lot of cleaning and maintenance to make sure that it's up to par. So, without further ado, let's get into the actual specifics of this Dillon Precision Square Deal B reloading press. Okay, so this is a Dillon Square Deal B progressive reloading machine. Now, you've heard that term progressive possibly, and also single stage. Now, there's two big differences between single stage and progressive. A single stage machine will only do one process at a time, and then you have to change out one or more components in order to do the second process. So you will have one set of components to deprime and resize your cases, change a component, then do your powder drop, change a component, then do your bullet seating, change a component, and then do your bullet crimping. So it's a little bit longer process. This is a progressive machine, meaning that it will do all four processes simultaneously via a rotating shell plate, which is this piece right here. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 stations, and as you pull the handle down and come back up, you will see that the shell plate will rotate into its next position. And so once you get it loaded with a case in each station doing each function, by the time you get to the end, every time you pull the handle down and up, you're going to be discharging a completed round into the bin here. So this is what's known as a progressive machine. You're going to have higher reloading rates. I'm averaging, I'm going to say, around 300 rounds per hour, depending on what I'm loading and whether I have somebody help load new cases in station number 1. Sometimes my wife or my son helps me, which is very helpful. So this is what's known as a progressive machine. Now, last time I looked on the Dillon Precision website, the Square Deal B pricing was right around $430, I believe. That included a caliber change, so it's going to include one caliber of your choice. The Square Deal B loads anywhere from, I think it's 32 ACP up to 45 ACP. So a lot of different calibers in there, including all the most popular ones. I don't think 32 is all that popular, but certainly 38, 9mm, 40 caliber, 45 ACP, 44 mag. All the most popular ones are going to be available for this particular machine. But this will only load pistol calibers. You cannot load any rifle caliber rounds on this machine whatsoever. This machine also does have some upgrades to it that are not included in that price I mentioned to you. And again, that's the latest price I believe I saw from Dillon Precision. I will certainly link their website down below. I do invite you to check them out. So the options I have on this one, first and foremost, is I have the Dillon Precision Strong Mount here. This keeps it back from the front of my bench, so it's not hanging over the front. It keeps it up high enough so that the Sprint primer cup does not hit the bottom of the bench. This is literally made for this machine. Keeps it nice and solid on my bench. My bench doesn't move, nothing's rattling around. I love the Strong Mount. There is another manufacturer out there, Inline Manufacturing, that does also make a mount for presses. I will link them also in the description below. Their mounts are more universal, so you can swap out one machine to the next on the same mount. It is a pretty fancy thing, but I have the Dillon Strong Mount. I also have a bullet tray here as an option. Keep my bullets ready for reloading right here in this tray, so they're nice and handy for sitting on the case when it's getting ready to that station. I have an optional empty brass tray right here, again just for speeding up the process. I also have the Dillon wrench set here. It comes with all the Allen heads that are needed for this machine, as well as the wrench for any die adjustments. So those are a few options I have on this Dillon machine. The powder bar here, which is this piece right here, may or may not have to be changed when you're doing a caliber conversion, depending on what you're loading. Some of the Magnum loads require you to change out this powder bar if you're loading a little bit higher charge. Almost everything I have uses just the small bar, so I've never actually had to change that, but I do have it if I need it. So let's go into a little bit about the different calibers. So loaded on this machine right now is a die set for my 40 caliber. You can actually see it says on here, it says 10 and 40. It's printed right on the top there. 40 caliber and 10 millimeter are the same diameter. This die set will actually load 10 millimeter or 40 caliber. It does both. If you want to change out calibers, then you would purchase another tool head, which is the black metal piece right here, and a different die set. It also comes with these proprietary dies right here. There's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 of them, plus the powder funnel. This is caliber specific. And then it comes with the shell plate that's needed for that specific caliber, and also some of the locator pins for that particular caliber that you're loading. Now, I believe you can actually purchase the die set without the black tool head here, and you would just unscrew everything and screw everything back in. The advantage of spending just a touch extra money, and it's well worth it, to purchase the tool head, is that when you change out a caliber from 40 to 9, all my adjustments here stay the same, because I haven't unthreaded these from the tool head itself. I've just unbolted the tool head. And so if I'm loading similar ammunition from one caliber to the next, I can literally unbolt one, bolt the new one in, and literally start loading almost immediately after doing of course, a powder check to make sure that it's dropping the correct powder weight. That's a huge time savings rather than having to go back through and make all your adjustments again, to get the proper loads. So that's a little bit about the caliber conversions, what that looks like. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what other tools you may or may not need to get started reloading. Of course, first and foremost is you're going to need a press. That's obviously most important. But what are some of the other things you're going to need to accomplish a good, reliable, reloaded round? Okay, obviously, first and foremost, you're going to need some components. Number one, you need some brass. Now, I save all my brass. I always collect my range brass when I'm done shooting, and in many cases, I'm collecting a lot of extra brass as well from the range from other people that have decided not to pick it up. Once fired range brass, if inspected and cleaned properly, is completely fine to use. Most of these can be reloaded several times depending on what type of caliber you're shooting. There are ways to check your brass to see if it's been overpressured, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into that today, but just know that obviously brass is one of the major components, obviously, of reloading your ammunition. Number two, we're going to look at primers. Now, these are CCI primers. These are small pistol primers. Again, a lot of manufacturers out there, Federal, Winchester, again, CCI, there's a few others. Everybody has their preference. Everybody has an opinion. CCI has always worked well for me, and I have a nice stash of them. So, of course, I'm going to stick with CCI. So, primers. These are the little charges that are actually going to set off the powder. If I can do this with one hand, you can see there, and those get loaded in the bottom of the round, and that's what actually sets off the powder. Now, you have to be careful around these primers. Make sure you just store these in a safe location. They are an explosive, so make sure that you handle those properly and store those in a safe location, away from heat and away from kids and all those things. Of course, you're going to need some bullets as well. Again, a lot of choices here. These here I'm going to be loading here soon are a hybrid hollow point from Berry's. You can see the hollow point there. These are a defensive load. These are really not for target shooting. I'm loading these mainly for defensive purposes. But you're going to need some bullets, and we'll go into that maybe in a little bit more depth if people have questions about that. All right, last but not least, the pieces to actually making the bullet is going to be your powder. Again, a lot of opinions here. I happen to be a Hodgdon fan. I do have some other powders from Accurate on hand as well. Sometimes I like those as well, but I am sort of a Hodgdon fan. For pistols, I'm pretty exclusive to using one of these two, either Tight Group or CFE pistol. They're slightly different. The Tight Group powder uses a very, very low charge weight. Matter of fact, this 40 caliber, I'm only going to be loading 4.5 grains, I think, in that one for that round. Versus the CFE pistol, I'd have to load about 5.6 grains. So you can see it's quite a bit less powder for the Tight Group, but you have to be very careful as well with the Tight Group, because if you overcharge that, it's a very fast burning powder, and you could definitely run into problems if you run an overcharge on the Tight Group. As opposed to the CFE pistol, it might be a hair, leeway there. All right, so brass, bullets, primers, powder, those are the main components you obviously need to reload in addition to the reloading machine. So what else do you need if you want to get start reloading? All right, you need to know how much powder do I need for each particular bullet that I'm loading. And for that, you're going to go to a reloading resource, a reload data resource. There's lots of them out there. There's quite a few actually online as well. Some of the powder manufacturers, including Hodgdon, will actually print the reloading data right on the bottle for you for some very specific calibers and grains. You can see it actually on that 40 S&W, which is the third one from the bottom. It's saying 4.7 for 180 grain Hornady XTP, which is very similar to the Berries. I'm going to go just a touch lower than that, of 4.5. I found that to be very accurate just through some of the testing that I've done. But some of the reloading data is printed right there on the bottle for you. The Lyman manual is a great resource. I think the 49th edition is the last one out. There may be a 50th now, but the 49th has covered pretty much everything I have. All the new editions will cover some of the new calibers that come out. The 6 Arc is a new one that probably wouldn't be in here. And so anytime a new caliber comes out, it probably would not be in the oldest edition of the Lyman book. This is actually a really great one. I've got one of these for each of my calibers that I reload. This one is for the 10mm or the 40 S&W. This is just one book, and it covers just one caliber. And in here, it will have data for all the different types of bullets from different manufacturers, and or it will have data based on the manufacturer of the powder that you're using as well. So I actually find these books to be very, very helpful, and I typically go to this before anything else. And usually I find the data that I need right here within this book. So again, they make these for all the different calibers, 40, 9, 45 ACP, one caliber, one book. You can get these on Amazon. You can get them from Cabela's or whatever your favorite store is. You can usually always find these books. So Lyman book, always good. This one covers a variety of different rifle and handgun calibers. This has just a ton of stuff in it. But if you're looking at one specific caliber, these are great books right here. So reloading data, very important. This is going to be imperative for you to have a safe reloading experience. You must find data somewhere, and this is a great resource for that. So that definitely a necessary function of reloading. All right, the next two things that you're absolutely going to have is a scale and a micrometer. The scale, what this is going to do for you is you're actually going to weigh your powder charge. And you're going to do this several times at the start of your reloading process to make sure that the drop of powder that your machine is doing from the powder funnel up here is weighing itself correctly. So you're going to have a scale here. I typically will have a round in the machine. I'll have it primed. I'll weigh the brass first, and I will zero it out, and I will drop a charge in the case, and I will come back and I will set the case on the scale and weigh exactly how much grains of powder are within that. So that's typically my function. I'll do that several times the first time around to make sure that the machine is calibrated and it's properly dropping the correct charge. Very, very important. You must have a scale. This one is from Frankford Arsenal. It's relatively inexpensive. I found it to be just fine, very accurate. There probably are some more scientific scales out there you can spend more money on. But this one from Frankford Arsenal has worked very well for me for the last few years, so I have no issues with it. So scale, very important. A micrometer. This is going to be used to measure the overall length on your case. When you get a round completed, you must measure it and get a number based off the data that was in your manual. Your manual will tell you what your overall length for your cartridge should be, and you must measure that to make sure that your reloading machine is seating the bullet down to the correct depth in station number 3, which is what station 3 does, is it seats the bullet. And you must make sure that the bullet seating depth is correct and that your cartridge overall length is accurate. Again, this one is from Frankford Arsenal. Again, not expensive at all, but critical, a must-have piece for reloading, the micrometer, and also the scale. Okay, last piece or pieces of critical infrastructure for your reloading setup is what is called a case gauge. This one is for a 9mm. This one is for a 40 S&W. And what this gauge does is it makes sure that the round will chamber in your gun properly. And it also simultaneously sort of does a overall case length as well. Although I would still rely on the micrometer over this any day of the week. But essentially, when you get a round completed, this is a 40 caliber completed round. All you do is you drop the round into the case gauge, and you want to make sure that the round sits flush here, and also that the bullet does not protrude out from the base of the gauge as well. And you can see this one sits nicely, sits nice and flush, and the bullet does not protrude. This is very important. If you ever get a round that you drop in here and it stands true like this, that means that something has gone wrong in your process. Either the case did not resize properly, you did not crimp quite hard enough, and you get into a scenario like this in some barrels and chambers, the round either may not go into battery all the way, or if it does, it may not discharge properly. So you always want to make sure that you check your rounds after completing them to make sure, in the case gauge, to make sure that they seat properly and that you've done everything correctly. So again, this is a critical piece that you must have for reloading, is a case length gauge. All right, lastly, I'm just going to go over a few options, and I might have a few others sprinkled around here, but there's a few things that you may or may not want or need as time goes on. I think maybe one of these might be more important than the next, but let's start over here. This is a dry tumbler. I use this for processing my brass right home from the range. I typically don't wet tumble my brass right from the range. I like to dry tumble it first, get some of that soot and gook off, and then I will go ahead and deprime and resize, and then I'll do a wet tumble for the final clean. If you're going to buy new brass all the time, you definitely probably do not need that, this dry tumbler. If you're just going to reload new brass all the time and you're never going to deal with range brass, then this would definitely only be an option, or you may not even need it. But most reloaders do have some sort of cleaning process, whether that be a dry tumbler or a wet tumbler. Again, this one's from Frankford Arsenal. I use a walnut shell media in there. You can also use corncob media, and there's some additives that you can dump in there to help clean the brass as well. Next one, this is going to be a bullet puller. Whether you like it or not, we all make mistakes. You're going to have to disassemble some cartridges that you've made. This uses kinetic energy actually to disassemble the bullet into its components, so you can salvage your bullet and your powder and your case and redo things. Maybe we'll go into this process a little later, but essentially this is a bullet puller, and this is going to disassemble a completed round back into its components safely, obviously, so that you don't want to kill yourself trying to disassemble a round. And then these are some case preps tools. This one's pretty cool. This is from Lyman. There's actually a few other tools inside of here. I'll just open this up real quick. There's a few other tools inside of here. Essentially what this comes with is some primer pocket cleaners. This is a small primer pocket cleaner. Here's the large one for shooting the magnums. And there's some reamers here. This is for reaming out some cartridges that have a military crimp in them. Probably a subject for a different day. And then there is some flare tools here. This flares out the inside of the case mouth and does the outside. And this is just a handheld version of the same thing with an inside and outside case mouth reamer. So these are some case preps tools. Definitely not a necessity. I use these quite often on my rifle rounds for my .223 or my .556, where it's a little bit more important to have nice prepped cases. But for handgun loads, definitely probably an option on those. So those are just maybe a few options. And again, there's a few other tools I have sprinkled around that I really are not necessary, but you'll just sort of accumulate over time. But these are some good options right here. All right, so I appreciate everybody watching. I really would like to hear in the comments down below any particulars that you would like me to focus on the next series of videos. I do intend this to be probably a multi-part series. There's too much in depth to do in one video without everybody getting bored to death. The video would be much too long. So I figured I'd focus on the specifics today, particularly for new reloaders that are looking to get into it. Again, I'm very partial to Dillon Precision. They are not the only manufacturer out there, and I'm not saying that they're the best or the worst. A lot of other presses will do just a fine job for you. I'm just partial to Dillon. Some of the obviously necessities of reloading with your components, your brass and your bullets, your primers and your powder. Some of the other necessities, a scale, a micrometer, the reloading data book, and of course the case gauge. All very important stuff. Those are all necessities, and then of course some of the options I covered. What do you want to hear from? What do you want to see? I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate you liking and subscribing. Look for the next series. I'm going to link a few things down below in the description for you. I'll give you a link to Dillon Precision. You can check out some of their presses. Again, this is only a handgun press. If you want to go a little bit more higher scale, they definitely have machines that will do not only handgun calibers but also rifle calibers, and some of those are quite automated for you with automatic case feeders and automatic bullet feeders, but those machines can get quite expensive, and for a newbie I would definitely probably not recommend going that route. I will also link to CCI. Again, I'm not sponsored by CCI. I'm not sponsored by anybody in here, but I will link CCI as well. I will also link to Hodgdon and Barry's Bullets, and then I will also link in for Amazon to link for these books as well. You should check those out, and I'll give a link to Frankford Arsenal as well. They're a great manufacturer of reloading components. I really like Frankford Arsenal. They make good equipment, and I'll link to them as well. Again, appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. Hit that little bell for notifications for the next video in the series, and please put a comment down below. What do you want to see next about the reloading process? Hope everyone's having a great day.